let's get started with the webinar. Appreciate everybody attending tonight. We've been doing conservation webinars probably going on 3 years now. The objective here is to increase awareness and educate the public and our members on issues that are important to them. Tonight's webinar is no different. With the webinar series, the way these webinars function typically is we'll have a presentation, be around 30 minutes. If folks have questions or comments, you can put that into the chat or into the Q&A function at the bottom, and we'll collect those and we'll kind of organize them thematically, and then we'll ask Dr. Rosenau at the end of the presentation. If you're coming in from Facebook Live, just put it in the comments and we'll make sure we get to everybody's questions. So typically we will do around 30-minute presentation. I think, you know, Dr. Rosenau has been doing these for decades, and I think he's at 31 minutes. And then we'll do 15 minutes or a little bit more of Q&A. So Dr. Rosenau is the Inland Chair, Fisheries Chair for the BC Wildlife Federation. His resume is way too long for me to read. He brings, you know, 60 plus years of experience. He was an instructor at BCIT. He worked for the province. He's worked all over the world. Did some PhD work, I think, in Australia as well. We're all really fortunate to have him on board, and the title of his presentation tonight is Sustainability of a Public Pink Salmon Rod and Reel Fishery on the Fraser River in 2025. And I guess our motivation here was just to really bring people up to speed in terms of what things look like, some of the caveats or concerns around conservation and how those might be addressed, and just kind of give people an idea of what this fishery would look like given a year where it seems like we have a lot of pinks on the way back. So, Dr. Rosenau, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you very much, Jesse. I really appreciate it, and thanks everybody for showing up. I'm in a presenter mode here, so I can't see who is all in the chat rooms or whatever. But welcome. I saw a list of some of the people who signed up. So a lot of friends, former students, welcome. Great. I can't see you, but I guess you can see me. So that's wonderful. And I'm glad that you're here. So yeah, as Jesse says, I'm with the BC Wildlife Federation now. I'm happily retired. I'm happily doing more, well, sometimes more stuff now in fisheries than I did when I was teaching, trying to be out on the water quite a bit as well, so having fun. And one of the things I'm really jazzed about is being out on the Fraser River. I love the Fraser River. For those of you that were my former students, you know that the Fraser was my most favorite river in the whole wide world. And so salmon fishing, sturgeon fishing, camping, trying to, you know, shoot a few geese, and just the overall health of the river is really important to me. So I'm going to talk about the pink salmon rod and reel fishery on the Fraser River for 2025 and the sustainability of it. And it overlaps into a whole pile of other things, First Nations, commercial fishery, rights and titles, and of course the big old Department of Fisheries and Oceans, which we all love to hate sometimes, but we also get along with them as well. A number of my students and friends work there. So again, we'll put that into the mix. So what's the buzz here? So the media has been picking up on the fact that there is this potential, this putative large run of pink salmon that's returning to the Fraser River, and it's just barely starting. No fish have been recorded in the test fisheries in the Fraser, but offshore, they're starting to pick them up in increasing numbers. And so there's expected to be a record run of 30 million fish. And this record is in terms of modern day records. Hell's Gate, the slide, really did a number because a lot of pinks actually did and now do spawn upstream of Hell's Gate, and they do move into the Thompson Nicholas. So pink salmon, 2-year life history, not the best, most desirable fish, but still very good table fare if you get it early in the run. And everybody's buzzed. I've had friends call that I haven't heard from for years saying, how do I get out? When do I get out? So what's part of the issue here? Well, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans has an integrated fishery management plan. And this is a plan that's put forward, maybe up to a year earlier The number of fish that are expected to come back are a function of a modeling exercise, probably juvenile downstream migration trapping at Mission. And so lots of things going into it. But if you look, so you're all looking on screen, so it shouldn't be too bad. In the old days, they used to say there's going to be 3,564,000, blah, 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 right down to the last digit. Now they give probability. So there's a probability, P10, that the return will be as small as 12.6 million, which is a pretty big run. It might be at a 10% level at the other end of almost 60 million and just under 30 million at the P50, probability 50 level. And so the available harvest is 18.9 million fish if it comes back at the P50 level. And so those of us who like to catch fish are really jazzed about that. So what is the Lower Fraser River salmon sport fishery? So I know a little bit about it. The first time my dad took me out was I lived in Coquitlam. We went to the mouth of Coquitlam River, off of Leader Bar, a few other places. My friends and their dads would take us out, and we would fish. We didn't usually catch too much in the late 60s and early to mid 70s. A lot of stocks were sort of recovering. The 80s were just gangbusters for salmon, but I do have a familiarity. I moved up into the Chilliwack area later on in my fishing career, associated with Fraser River salmon fishing, big Chinook salmon. That's what I was chasing, and just had a lot of fun over the years. So I know a little bit about it. But we've had some trouble trying to negotiate. So fisheries management with DFO is getting more and more complicated over time, different user groups. And so what we're trying to do, and what we've had since about 2017, is a real clampdown on the availability of fishing on these sand and gravel bars in the Lower Fraser River. So sandbars are below, downstream of the confluence of the Sumas. You can just draw a line at Mission. So below Mission is tidal. River moves up and down. With the tides, it does a little bit upstream as well, but that's considered to be marine tidal rules and jurisdictions. So if you want to go out and fish below Mission, make sure you've got a saltwater tag or license. If you're going to fish in what's called freshwater upstream of Mission, make sure that you've got a freshwater license so that you can do your thing in freshwater. And I would encourage you, I think Jesse's going to try and put together a webinar on how to catch pink salmon. Might happen in the next few weeks. And Fred Helmer, Fred's Tackle, has been talking to me about trying to put that together. So there's about 50 bars. The gravel reach upstream of Mission, fast water, lots of gravel bottom, sandbars downstream of Mission. So it's a very family oriented. This is what's so intriguing about this fishery. Sometimes you need a boat. Sometimes you can just walk to the edge of the bank. But because it's a very easy access and very family oriented and social fishery, it's so extraordinary to us, to British Columbians and to Canadians. And I just, I fished that. I camped out on it. The fellow in the white shirt on the right, you can see he only has one arm. And he's a friend of mine. He's passed away now, but him and I, we just had wonderful times. His name's Herb Krauser. And so you can see this is a very, very family-oriented fishery, and particularly the pink salmon fishery, and I'll explain why. So there's different types and different, the river downstream of Hope is really divided up into different gear types and different species that you're going to catch. So I'm going to start on the right-hand side, down below Mission, the sand reach. You can see the bottom of the stream, bottom of the river is sandy. You put a big gob of roe or maybe some dew worms, 1 or 2 or 3 ounce weight. You fling the hook and the weight out, and you put the rod in a rod holder or a fork stick, and you wait for a fish to come along and bite it. So that's sort of the classical. That's probably been the way to do it since the 1920s or 30s. Probably a fishery over 100 years. In the middle reach, the upper reach in the gravel reach, we have something called bottom bouncing. So long leader, weight, around weight, usually rubber coated, and maybe 1.5 to 3 or 4 ounces. You cast the line out, let the whole line drift down into the current, and what happens is these big schools of salmon, mostly sockeye and some Chinook, come along. Sockeye don't like to bite. In freshwater, it's tough to get them to bite. And so that line is moving along about 5 or 6 inches above the river bottom. As the fish swims by, opens its mouth, the line goes in. As the line tightens up, it hooks the fish. This is known as flossing. It's snagging. The fish aren't really biting. There's some controversy associated with it. But more and more up in Alaska, they have big sockeye rod and reel fisheries, and that's the way to get them. And then the old classical way, the bar fishing with the spin and glow. So this little lure spins sort of a cork with some wings, big heavy weight, cast the line out, put a bell on the rod, stick the rod in a rod holder, and then you have to have the ubiquitous lawn chair. You can't go bar fishing without a lawn chair and maybe an umbrella. And you sit there and talk to your friends and have a wonderful time. And if you're lucky, a 30 or 40 pound spring will come along. Chinook will come along. And I've had that. I've caught fish up to 30 pounds or more in the main stem of the Fraser up in the Chilliwack area. So as we move forward, what's been so important about this fishery for British Columbians over and above that social aspect? Well, in fact, it has minimal impact, and we catch pink, Chinook, coho, sockeye, even in the earlier days. Steelhead are now threatened, and those fisheries are closed down. Period of time when steelhead are migrating through the river, they're closed down. Chum salmon as well, been some declines in chums recently. But you can see here the bar fishery. So this axis, the vertical axis, is expenditures, and we're using the ICA 2023 values at $173 per day, 4.5 hours per angler day. A third of $1 billion since 1995 to 2023. The average expenditure when you have all the species included that we normally catch, so the sockeye, Chinook, and pinks, we're going to leave coho, chum, and steelhead out of the picture. We're looking at about 17 million, and depending on the opening and closures. But you can see here, this axis on the right-hand side, angler days, in the big, huge, what we called gong fisheries or combat fisheries in 2010, 2014, 2006. A zillion sockeye came back. 2010 was 26 million. And so a lot of people went out and had fun and caught fish. So that was the important thing. So we're going to concentrate on pinks. And so why are we concerned about it? Because we've had problems negotiating with DFO. And so we want to kind of emphasize it that we really want this fishery to go ahead. We think that it's pretty benign. It's not a huge impact. The effect of catching other species. So bycatch, catch and release, we got to let these other species go often. The mortality in our fisheries is pretty small. A, from the kinds of gear we're using, and B, given the size of these runs, even if they are depressed, they're still big runs and we're not getting very many of them. So what's good about it? There's lots of them, 30 million predicted for the summer, fall of 2025. So we're all watching, those of us who know are all watching the test fisheries up and down the coast, mandated and operated by the Pacific Salmon Commission. And these fish, these pink salmon are really starting to build up in that and some of the other sport fisheries. We also have, it's very easy to get to. You just get in your car, drive up to the riverbank, start casting off a good beach and a good tide, and voila, you've got a fish or two, or maybe up to 4. There's so many fish coming back that we're asking DFO to up the limit to 4 this year, at least in freshwater. It's usually 4 downstream. So yeah, it's a good way of doing things. Reasonably easy to catch if you know what you're doing, and I'll talk a few tips. And again, Fred and some of us might do a little bit of a seminar on how to get them. Relatively low cost from a gear perspective. You can go to Walmart or Canadian Tire, get a $30 spinning rod and a reel combination, and $10 in lures. You don't need waders. You just get shorts and sand shoes, And water's nice and warm, although some of the videos that I'll show you just a little bit later show people in waders. You need gas to get to the Fraser River. Somebody to tell you what the hot bar is. It's very tidally oriented fishery, so the fish come in on the flood tide. They're swimming along close to shore, and pretty easy to catch under the right circumstances. Other times they just won't bite, so that's fishing. Still reasonably good quality meat in Lower Fraser River before they get to their spawning streams. So pinks are considered to be probably the least of the 5 species, but you get them early in the season, and down on the Lower River, they're still nice and shiny and very good for barbecue, canning, smoking, lots of things to do with them. It's lots of fun and great social and family atmosphere. So what's kind of the history? So pink salmon have a strict 2-year life history. They spawn, the little guys come out of the gravel the next spring, go out to sea, and then in a year and a half later they come back. And it's very predictable. So Chinooks might have 5 or 6 different year classes, coho, couple year classes, sockeye, usually 4, but sometimes an extra 1 or 2. Pinks are strictly 2. And for some reason, probably has to do with the last ice age, the Fraser River only has odd numbered fish runs in the pink salmon species. Go up to Campbell River, you get even and odds, and the dominant run, Campbell River North, is even runs. In the Fraser in the south, the dominant run is in the odd numbered years, and it's only odd numbered years. So long-term average over this time frame is a little bit under 10 million, and the minimum escapement required by DFO is 6 million. So quite a few fish. So what's the impact? So just a little bit of numbers here. I hope you bear with me because these aren't pretty pictures, but the average number of angler days at 4.5 hours per angler day, when you've got all these mixed species fisheries, sockeye, Chinook, and pinks, but I'm going to talk about the pink harvest in those fisheries. So in those years, when you can fish for pinks, and again, you can only fish for them on odd numbered years, and then again, if there's enough. So DFO has not allowed fisheries to take place on a few years when the stocks are low, but this year that shouldn't be a problem. So the average number of pinks is about 20,000. I've got here 19,500. Some people go out and catch and release a few fish. So the percentage of pinks returning to the Fraser River is 0.15%. Like it's not 1.5%. It's not 10.5%. It's 0.15%. Okay, so you divide 19,500 into 12 or 12.9 million into 19,500, and you get 0.15. So not a big, we're not really doing tough stuff here. Fishing for pink salmon, I said it's pretty easy. You go down to Canadian Tire. Oops, sorry, Fred. You go to Fred's fishing tackle shop, and you buy mostly pink or red lures. A spinning rod, I'm sure Fred's going to have lots on sale for you, and as will the other shops. And pretty easy, mostly pink lures. I find that when the water's clear, you want to go small, small, small. And super secret here, wedding ring, that you fish for kokanee, those little tiny lures actually do a real number on these fish, but don't tell anybody, okay? And here's one of my former students, Fernando, and we went out a couple of years ago, 2023, and got some nice pinks. You can see still pretty nice and silver, and lots of good fish. Whoops. So here you can fish in areas upstream of the Abbotsford Mission Bridge. What you end up is with lower densities of anglers because, hey, up there we were only allowed to kill 2 fish. You can see the fish quality down here in the middle. I've got a bunch of sand on the fish, but they're nice quality fish. Other than that, the parking lot, if you're opening day, you got to get there early. You're not going to get a spot below the Abbotsford Mission Bridge. And you can go there at certain tides. Certain tides aren't particularly good for fishing. Got to figure out what the good tides are. Get your spot and then wait for the tide to come in. So yeah, it's a good fun fishery. You fish all the way, hopefully up to Hope and beyond Hope. up into the Fraser Canyon area. We're looking at openings up at Quesnel, Prince George, and the Kamloops area as well. So I'm going to show a little slide. So I think this was opening day. I don't know if you can hear the sound, but it's just traffic noise. So people are spread out. It's not like the better Chilliwack where you're 2 feet from each other. There's a fish there. I guess it looks like low tide, so the fish will be coming in shortly. And people just spread themselves out. There's lots of room. The fish are migrating close to shore. So just upstream is the Pacific Salmon Commission hydroacoustic station. There's a guy pulling a cooler full of fish, I guess. And little kids playing. It's a pretty safe place to be able to go. There's a dead fish there. Go up the beach here, you can see people spread out. And yeah, it's casting into the dead fish right there. Somebody's got a fish, another one or two there. And so people are just having a really good time. It's not a combat fishery. It's got a lot of people, but it's not the zoo fishery that you can get in the Vetter Chilliwack. And so why we've been constrained in the recent years, DFO has taken an extremely cautious approach, sometimes unrealistically, we believe, the conservative approach to catch and release mortality of non-target species, specifically sockeye salmon populations and the interior Fraser coho. So that's an interior Fraser coho on the right and a sockeye salmon on the left. And we recognize that conservation comes number one, and FSC, food, social, and ceremonial for First Nations comes number two. But then if there's 30 million fish and there's 18 million surplus, we would like to have a few of those as well. And so I'll go through a few of the numbers that, so this is what has happened to sockeye. This is the number of returning fish. And I've also plotted a 4-year running average to kind of smooth these lines. You can see 2022, 2018, 2014, 2010, 2006, 2004, or 2022. These are the big 4-year Adams River cycles. Now, there's other runs that used to be very big that also cycled 4 years. But in fact, those have kind of collapsed. And even the Adams run had dropped. Now, it seems like this year, the early Stewart run is supposed to come in at 116,000 with 725,000 coming in this year. The test fisheries out on Area 12 off of Blinkhorn ended up getting 8,500 fish yesterday and 7,500 fish today in the test fisheries. So we're looking at maybe a bit of a recovery here and less concern about bycatch mortality. Coho, interior Fraser coho, IFC coho, have really collapsed in the 1990s, 93 or 94. Runs of 250,000 fish just went basically to the floor. DFO shut pretty well. All wild coho fisheries have been shut down since the mid-1990s. But these guys are slowly crawling out of the hole. And you can see in 2024, there was a nice little bump, okay? And so we had 100,000 fish. So DFO is still very cautious about it, but we'll show some of the numbers, and we think that maybe we can get around that. So what's bycatch? Bycatch is if you're fishing for a species of fish or crabs or shrimp or whatever, and you're catching unwanted fish and other marine creatures, and you try and toss them back alive. Some of the shrimp fisheries down in the tropics are really bad. 95% of the fish get shoveled overboard because they're not marketable. All the people want is shrimp. So we're trying to avoid mortality, bycatch, catch and release mortality as much as possible. And catch and release is the practice within recreational fishing where you let the fish go. And so one of the ways that we become very selective is we can use gear types. We can use barbless hooks. So pretty well all salmon fisheries in British Columbia now are barbless, single barbless hooks. Well, single barbless in freshwater and barbless of any type in marine water. So yeah, we're trying to be careful. So the reason that I say it's sustainable, and this was sort of the bugaboo with DFO, is they essentially are are very worried about the catch and release mortality. We think it's not a problem. We'll go through some of the numbers. I don't think DFO had really gone through the numbers to show that our fishery, despite some years of pretty high harvest rates and big, huge sockeye returns, the mortality of releasing fish is really quite low. We did a study in 2009, by we, I mean the fisheries guys are interested, J.O. Thomas, and they found that the catch and release mortality of sockeye for when you're doing this flossing type fishing. And flossing, you're dragging the hook, the line through the mouth, so the hook is caught mostly on the outer side, the jaw, the nose, whereas if a fish bites, the hook goes inside of the mouth and can hit the gill arches, the blood vessels, the esophagus, the blood vessels, the inside of the eye. So I think that's why flossing has a very low mortality rate. It has a much higher catch rate. It's very effective at catching fish, but that's compensated by a low mortality rate. And so Lower Fraser River in 21-23, I had to go through all sorts of hoops and jumps to be able to calculate this stuff, figure out what the impact is, because often we have mixed fisheries, sockeye, Chinook, and pinks, and so on and so forth. Sometimes pinks don't come back on even numbered years. So I found 2 years where all gear types could be used, and we had about 18,000 angler days. And so if you multiply the 173, so about 20,000 angler days, 173, you're looking at about $3 million worth of expenditures. So that's the expenditures that anglers in British Columbia on average use or undertake for an angler day. 9.3 million pink salmon came back. And so we had about 20,000 number of pinks, 20,000 fish harvested. Well, in the test fishery 2 days ago, we had 8,500 up at area 12, Blinkhorn. Now they don't, in the seine test fisheries, don't kill them, but these big seine boats can easily take 20,000 fish. And so the whole season for us for pinks on the Lower Fraser is, I don't know, a half of a hold, or somebody here has commercial fish. It's not a massive amount of fish relative to the size of 9.3 million. But we get 18,000 angler days. We get 20,000 angler days out of it. And our proportion of pinks returning to the Fraser that we harvest is 0.21, so 0.21%. That's a percent. What's the deal with sockeye? Well, with sockeye, our catch and release is actually pretty low, particularly when we use some of the 1.2%, even 5% is higher, but we used 5% in 2021 and 2022 because sockeye are being caught in those pink fisheries. You can see the guys are casting out with a lure. The fish are biting. So sockeye, which rarely bite, end up not often being caught in these pink fisheries. So in the 2 years, the average number of fish that were caught that were sockeye, 57 fish. Now remember, we got almost 20,000 pinks back into our creel that we took home, but only 57 sockeye because they don't bite. And if you use the 5% mortality rate, that's 2.8 fish. And the number of sockeye that died, of the percent of the run, it was 0.0002% of the run. So we think we've got a really clean fishery here. We're pretty confident that we can avoid sockeye. We can catch fish. We can go out. We take our kids out and catch lots of fish and have a great time. Interior Fraser coho, as I mentioned, that has collapsed over the years. It looks like it's bumping up a little bit, but we have some statistics. Again, these data come from creel surveys. The Interior Fraser coho moved through the Lower Fraser in about the first 3 weeks of September. And we think that DFO's ultra-conservative approach probably doesn't have a lot of merit for the pink fishery. It might for other fisheries, marine or gillnet, or, I'm not going to get into other gear types, but I'm just saying for our particular pink fishery, pretty low. And so DFO is looking to keep the interior Fraser River coho at an exploitation rate of 3 to 5%. They want to keep it under 5%. So based on our assessment of the creel surveys, 36 fish probably died as a function of non-target fish coho catches and then releases. So 36 fish. And when you consider that at that time of the year, we've actually got a mixture of lower Fraser coho and upper Fraser coho or interior Fraser coho. Probably you divide it by half, and about 18 fish died. And so that is for an escapement in a normal year. So I looked at some of the statistics, interior Fraser escapement for 06, 07, 09, right up to 23. And I only took years where I had at least 20,000 angler days. And so for those years, the average was almost 40,000 angler days. Average was 55 fish harvested, which should by law only be hatchery fish. Released on average was about 500 fish. And so the maximum mortality, I gave you the 21-23 statistics on the previous slide. This is for these other slides. And again, the amount of fish relative to the size of the coho population in the interior is 0.078%. Divide it by 2 if you want to, because half of them would be lower Fraser and the other half would be interior. So really low mortality. And I just want to mention, just kind of at the conclusion, because Chinook and sockeye get mixed into the picture and questions. We were really sequestered, or we were kept from harvesting Chinook from about 2017 onwards. And some of these Chinook runs, people probably don't understand that the Chinook run in 2023 into the Fraser, mostly the really strong stocks in the southern interior, the Harrison and the Chilliwack River hatchery. So the bulk of them, the early run fish from, basically March all the way till the middle of or end of July, really in dire straits. And then we have almost 1 million fish at the other end of these really strong stocks. So we think we could possibly have an opportunity. And again, when we have a Chinook pink opening and no sockeye, the average mortality is 216 fish, and that's for a run of 2.3 million sockeye. So again, we think that our fish impacts when we have the gear type that we're using is relatively low. On big years with sockeye, where you're not really worried about catch and release incidental catch, because you actually are targeting sockeye, 421 fish in a big run of almost 10 million, an average of 10 million sockeye. So again, so that's pretty well it. I'll just provide some conclusions here. So we think the Lower Fraser River public salmon rod and reel fishery provides lots of benefits economically, recreationally, socially, and food-wise to British Columbia at relatively small cost of the resource. We're only taking about 20,000 pieces. On a really big year, we might go up to 40 or 50,000 pieces, but on a big year, you're looking at 20 million fish, and this year it might be 30 million fish. So if we're at 40 or 50,000 fish, it's just a tiny drop in the bucket. And our bycatch mortality to sockeye, any endangered sockeye that might be coming through, actually probably not endangered, conservation concern is probably a better term, or coho is relatively limited. So we think, I basically just said that the conservation concerns for both pinks and sockeye and coho are limited. I think we think the fishery should go ahead, Lower Fraser River, and we think that other parts of the Fraser watershed. We've had some meetings with the folks in the Kamloops area, folks in the Prince George, Quesnel area, and the Fraser River. We're hoping, fingers crossed, doesn't always happen, the Fraser River is going to be just absolutely chocker-blocker full of pinks, we hope. And so those guys get a little bit of a kick at the can as well. And they like to have these fish when other species are not available. So we'd like to see additional resources inputted to continue to monitor, because we had these large sort of debates and discussions, and I'll say squabbles from time to time amongst user groups and DFO. And we'd like to, have peace in the valley, have good, solid, science-based conversations, And so we really like to see good, solid monitoring on these public rod and reel fisheries. And just as a note, DFO has recently cut back on assessments. And so we want to make sure conservation of the stocks, FSC, First Nations food, social and ceremonial needs are met as per the Constitution, Section 35 of the Constitution. We have the USA agreements, commercial, marine sport. We all want to be able to make informed decisions. So that's pretty well it, folks. Some scenes from the Fraser River. Again, I just really thank you so much for coming out tonight and being able to talk and see what our fishery is all about. BC Wildlife Federation has been just a wonderful group of folks that really support and help mentor and try to get folks involved in conservation and use of the resource.
There we go. Thanks, Marvin.
And so we're really, really happy about what is happening here with the BC Wildlife Federation. We have our partner groups with the Fraser Valley Salmon Society. We have the Sport Fish Advisory Board, DFO. Sometimes we grumble a little bit about DFO, but most of those guys are my friends. Maybe one or two not, but most of them are my friends. A lot of them are my students. So we really want to say thanks for coming out and hope to see you on the river. And as Ted Peck used to say, tight lines and straight shooting.
Awesome. Thanks, Marvin. I've got a few questions here in the hopper. Some you may not be able to answer, and some might be out of your wheelhouse, but we'll ask a few of them anyways. This one refers to, I think, the slide around abundance for pink, I'm guessing. Said, why did you have the P50 highlighted? What is the reasoning for your decision? Do you want to just explain why you typically gravitate towards P50?
Well, P50s are usually the middle of the pack, right? It's a normal curve in terms of probabilities, it's right at the peak. It's not too high, it's not too low. And so P50 is really the metric that most fisheries managers, I would suggest, gravitate to. Now, they're not necessarily going to harvest at those P50 levels, but they are anticipating that that's the number that's going to come back. So I think from a statistical probability perspective, you try and figure out your best statistic that's most highly likely, and that's why I would have highlighted it. It's not necessarily going to happen. In fact, it isn't going to happen. Like statistically, it's always going to be a little bit higher or a little bit lower. That's just the nature of parametric statistics.
Great. Here we go. When it comes to fish stocks, what effort is being put into ecosystem restoration in the ocean and estuary ecosystem? So that's a loaded question. I guess the question is, what are you aware of?
Oh, I think we almost need another webinar on that. I can talk on it. I spent a good portion of my life working on Fraser River habitat, gravel removal, Better River. We've got a little dust up on the Norris Creek where CPKC probably took a little bit too much gravel and dewatered a bunch of, but you know, I'm going to put a shout out to BC Wildlife Federation. It's got a lot of beaver dam analogs that it's using. So pink salmon, really though, pink salmon are main stem spawners. They like big water. You can find, this is bizarre, but in the 1960s or 50s, Pacific Salmon Commission, which was then called an International Pacific Salmon Fisheries Commission, put a diving bell down in the Fraser River, right in the middle of the river, like all the current, the heavy water, and they found pink salmon spawning right in the middle of the river. And so they're adapted to be able to, in those heavy currents, hunker down right close to the bottom where the current velocities are less. And so one of the things for pinks is recolonization. A lot of the lower Fraser River streams, Alouette, Coquitlam, probably a bunch of others were extirpated. Those were hydro project rivers, so DFO habitat staff and restoring them. On the Fraser, we really fought like hell. It cost me a few years of my life fighting this one. Mining, the folks said we're going to flood. They're going to flood. There's lots of gravel coming down. In fact, there was not a huge amount of gravel recruited from upper parts of the watershed. That gravel is extremely, extremely important for pink salmon. Better Chilliwack, big pink salmon, and gravel removal does have to come out. but we think the agency's got a little carried away, particularly last year. So we're trying to keep everybody honest.
Awesome. This is another one. This is going to be even harder. What are the numbers per person that guarantees recovery of the Fraser ecosystem? I don't know if you have an answer for that. It's a hard question.
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, it says, what are the numbers per person that guarantees recovery of the Fraser River ecosystem?
Well, that's a big problem because our numbers per person are growing like crazy in British Columbia. And okay, so what do we have? About 5 million people, 30 million fish. At least 5 million people can go out and take a fish home, and we still have a sustainable population. So I guess if you want to kind of put some metrics, we're doing a blue sky here. I think what we really want to see, is that British Columbians are happy with regards to the numbers that are coming back. Big fights regarding fish farms, big fights associated with the northern Alaskan guys trying to get British Columbia fish. So I think if we can try, and I applaud DFO for its conservative approach in many ways. And the sort of overarching thing is the rights and titles and reconciliation. So First Nations need to get their constitutionally guaranteed numbers of fish back. So we want to make sure First Nations, after conservation, have their legally required amounts. And I'm kind of going around in circles a little bit, but I think some of these things all relate to numbers of people in the province. As our province grows, we want to see I want to see this 30 million come back, every 2 years. So then there's at least enough fish for every British Columbian to go out, get a fish, and still lots of left over for First Nations and commercial fisheries.
Awesome. And so this is another question. I'm just going to try to put it together. It's a couple of different pieces, but it talks about biomass, I think comparison for species. So really, I think what the question is around is like, so we got a really big year of pinks. And we have questions about sockeye. So what does the rest of the Fraser or the lower Fraser look like from, you're on it, you're on the data because I get sent it every day. How does it look for other species like Ulican, Chinook, sockeye? There's a few questions floating around on all of those about fisheries. So just, I guess, recognizing that it's a loaded question.
Oh, so you're asking me my view on what the outlook is for us as we move forward in the next 2 or 3 months? Is that kind of
and just kind of there's a question about biomass and percent of biomass. So I guess compared to the baseline, how do things look? And then are there any other fish that are possibly showing signs of a potential opening on the Fraser?
Okay, well, I guess in terms of biomass, pre-European settlement, I don't really have a good idea, but the old Larkin papers and reports suggest over 100 million fish. So we haven't been that number, at least on runs like sockeye, for a long time. So if we jump into the question around biomass and ecosystems, sturgeon rely on salmon, okay? We had a few debates about this, and I've worked on sturgeon for quite a while. I maintain that the biomass of pinks, the biomass of sockeye contribute substantially. You get a fish that's 13 and a half feet long. So I've had, back in the 90s, I had topseed when there was a die-off of fish, sturgeon that were that big. And you don't get to be 134 years of age without getting a fairly significant amount of biomass coming back from the ocean. So these marine-derived nutrients. And we had been in a pit, okay, quite frankly, from the mid-1990s, all of these stocks pretty well. And we've had a rebound of the 4-sub-1, the southern interior Chinook. But for the most part, we've had this downward trend, okay? Coho, steelhead, Chinook, whatever, okay? And so what I think is happening, we've had this little, you can put 5 fisheries biologists and scientists in a room and you'll get, they'll fight like cats and dogs, and you'll end up with 6 or 7 different answers. And so Alexander Morton is quite excited right now because in 2021 and 2022, there was removals of fish farms in the Discovery Passage area near Campbell River, and she is starting to try and find out if there's a correlation between, that Thompson River coho jump. 2024, there was almost 100,000 coho that had been down to 10,000. You saw those little lines down there. All of a sudden, we're starting to get these big numbers. Chinook, 1 million Chinook, that's mind-boggling. Like, people don't understand how mind-boggling 1 million Chinook coming back to the Fraser River is. Okay, we've been hearing about these southern orca. My mind is slipping me here. Killer whales, and how important Chinook are to them. Well, we've got 1 million fish coming back, and this is after the orcas have chomped down on them. Okay, we had 725,000 early Stewart fish coming back, and like one little year or one little run means nothing statistically. It has no statistical relevance. But we see these sort of little glimmers of things that something, either Mother Nature has changed, or we've been doing something right managing the fisheries, or we've ended up the fish farms removals have worked on the Fraser system. And so trying to fit all, this is more complicated than Einstein. This is nothing. Relativity, the theory of relativity was nothing compared to trying to figure out this. And in fact, Einstein, there was a story that his brother was a fluvial geomorph, and trying to figure out how rivers work and stuff. He said, theory of relativity is easy compared to figuring out how the dynamics of rivers work. Well, layer on top of that fisheries ecosystems, and so you've got a super Einsteinian question here that I don't think I can answer in 2 minutes, but at least I tried.
Yeah, I figured there's a few tough questions in here that maybe we'll go.
Yeah, bring them on. Bring them on. I'm retired. I don't have to answer to any boss anymore.
For the Upper Fraser River, the individual is asking if there'll be an opening for Chinook or sockeye. You have any? Do you spend much time thinking about that end of the river?
I think there's actually some fisheries, dry rack fisheries opening for First Nations next week. Okay, so these bumps are so we have the early Stewart, we have the early Summers, the Summers, and then the Lates. Okay, so the Adams River Shuswap guys are Lates. Early Stewart, of course, go up past Prince George and then Chaco. So I think from a First Nations perspective, there are some really unexpected fisheries coming back this year. The upper river for Chinook, typically in some of the areas, I think the Quesnel River, in the Shuswap system, the Thompson River. I fish for jacks on the Thompson. Our friend Dean Work fishes it, and it's a fabulous fishery. It's a wonderful, and large adult Chinooks as you get up past this town of city of Kamloops. So yeah, there are some opportunities. It's not all gloom and doom. There's a lot of gloom and doom, but it's not all gloom and doom.
Awesome. So it says, thanks for the great presentation. What work is currently underway to get the fishery open in a timely manner?
And I ask who asked that question?
Well, I
usually
don't say people's names on this.
Okay, we won't. But the person that probably asked it was on a meeting today with me, and we've been dealing with DFO through the Sport Fish Advisory Board. And so, there's been lots of dialogue, lots of conversation. We're going to talk hopefully with the First Nations, the Lower Fraser, the LFFA sort of a subgroup called the Lower Fraser Collaborative Table. And so there's lots of good stuff happening in terms of conversations. And so I would say that the SFAB, the various groups, Fraser Valley Salmon Society, BC Wildlife Federation, SFI, Sport Fish Institute, Outdoor Recreation Council with Rod Clapton, we're all trying to get in the boat and row together. Of course, our objective is sport angling. Other folks have other objectives. And again, we go back and we say, conservation is number one, food, social, and ceremonial, Section 35 of the Constitution is number two. And then, the rest is sort of open, and commercial guys want to get their kick at the can. Marine sport fishermen want to get it. And when there's lots of fish, everybody's a lot happier when there's lots of fish. There's a lot less conflict. when fish are available. So I think, you know, kudos to the people that put a lot of hard work into getting these fisheries open.
Awesome. And this one you may not know, and feel free if you don't answer. There's a question around what is the FSC needs for pinks. I don't know if you have that or not, and if you don't, no biggie.
No, I don't know what it is. Typically FSC, in the old days, the good old days, I think FSC was about 1 million sockeye. In recent years, the average for Chinooks has bounced around about 25,000. I don't know what it is with pinks. First Nations probably want to catch Chinooks and sockeye because those are the primo, you know, when you want to smoke fish, when you want to can fish, when you want to freeze fish. Some of my former students, one of the fellows down in Catesy, posts on Facebook and all the wonderful family outings he's had and smoking and canning and freezing. So they want the higher quality. There may be a economic opportunity fishery up in Chilliwack. I don't know. I've heard various things, but if we have 30 million fish out there, there's got to be a lot of how should I say slop in the system to be able to harvest in ways and places and with people that normally wouldn't have got so many fish.
Awesome. Another question, when do you feel the rec community could expect a potential opening? Today there were images sent in from Bowen with total limits of pinks for every boat. What's your, I mean, now we're crystal balling because I don't know if there's a lot in river in terms of sampling, but what do you think timing wise might be an idea?
I follow the test fisheries really closely. So, you know, I actually look at the test fisheries now this time of year because I'm just interested in it, and I'm putting these presentations together, and so I'm waiting for the updates, and so the group that I was with today are hoping probably mid-August, 15th of August. The run time, if you look at the Pacific salmon, you look at the curve distributions, put the dates on the bottom axis, and middle of August is really when fish start to pour into the Fraser, when there's big enough runs. So quite frankly, you know, as I pointed out in our presentation, at 20,000 pieces, whether you're at 3 or 4 million fish, so below the anticipated or target escapement, or you're up at 30 million, it doesn't make any difference. You know, our harvest is so small, but we have to recognize that other people are first in line. So we can't jump the queue. Okay. So, but we're kind of hoping, you know, so tackle shops can get their gear ordered and, you know, people can, you know, figure out their holidays and stuff like that before the kids go to school, get out in the river. So we're hoping 15th of August. I'd like to see it 1st of August because it's not going to make any difference anyways, given the number of fish that are out in the river or out in the ocean right now. No, I've seen no pinks in any of the test fisheries in river. Doesn't mean there aren't any. There's Mother Nature always scoots a few oddballs in, but I haven't seen any in the data.
Awesome. Yeah, and I guess with big runs, distribution temporally spreads out. The curve kind of gets longer in the tails. Okay, any word on Thompson River Jack Chinook? I know that's one of your favorites, so you probably got it in your mental math right now.
Well, Dean Work with the Fraser Valley Salmon Society, he's the president. He usually helps negotiate that with DFO, with some of the First Nation groups up there. We've sort of sorted out some bumps and scrapes on the road over the years, but it's usually, I think, around the 28th of August, and Dean can type in a number that's different if 26th or 28th, somewhere around there. And yeah, it's just, you know, you know, with all the fish coming back, the 4 sub-1s, you know, it's just a fun fishery. You know, it's just, you know, that hot sagebrush pine smell and the, you know, the warm weather. It's just a great fishery.
Awesome. Any insights on chum returns this year and what a chum fishery might or might not look like?
No, I haven't. You know, I kind of came into this. Jesse's the bad guy here. I'm retired. I'm not going to do this stuff anymore. I told the Fraser Valley Salmon Society, because I was on the board of directors, I'm done. You know, stay away from me. I'm in retirement. You know, oh, you gotta do this stuff. You gotta do that. You know, and so I'm back in the fray. But I'm behind the 8 ball on chum, so I haven't kind of looked up the chum. You go into the IFMP, the Integrated Fisheries Management plan process. I see my friend Don Simpson has asked the question about the IFMP. I haven't been involved long enough with it. I just got nominated to the SFAB, so I've got a learning curve to get up to speed on some of these things, including chum.
Okay, great. Well, it's 8 o'clock. That gives us an hour. So, Marvin, I really want to thank you for putting this together and spending all the time poring over the data and using DFO's data and looking at this. We talk about this a lot. It's a hard world in the world of anadromous fish typically, and there's not a lot of good news. And so when we get good news, even if we don't expect it, we always kind of take it as a bit of a good sign. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate it. The objective tonight was really just to show people, kind of what we're thinking, how we're thinking through it, what the impacts could be on other species. We've got interior Fraser steelhead, which are always top of mind as well. So figuring out a way to make fisheries more sustainable and to figure out fishing practices and changing in those to make sure that we're doing the best we can is our focus. So thanks everyone. And if you feel like getting engaged, I mean, as always, as it relates to catch monitoring, enumeration, research, the dollars flow from Ottawa for the most part. So engaging your MP on the importance of fish conservation and public access, and your MLAs on the same thing. We always appreciate that because the more they hear from you, the better the outcome is as it relates to conservation, also ensuring that future generations can get out and enjoy things like a pink fishery on the Fraser River. Hope you all have a great night and enjoy your August long weekend.
Yeah, and for those of you, I thought I could be able to see one of the previous webinars, I could see who was there and can wave to them and say hi. Drop me a note on Facebook just to say what you thought of it, and like to say hi. I saw some of the folks that were involved in going to sign up, and so lots of friendly faces, lots of nice people that I really enjoyed teaching over the years and talking to. So just send me a note on Facebook. You just Google Facebook and my name, and really like to just say hi and stuff like that. So, and again, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for all your efforts. Have a great night.